All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Post Game Podcast, a podcast where I'm talking to former athletes about life after sports, what they've been up to in business, entrepreneurship, and much more. My guest today is a former decathlete, former college football player at Air Force and Villanova. He was a state trooper, franchise owner, and he's now an entrepreneur. So he's founded several companies, the latest being 42U, at the forefront of NIL brand building for college student athletes. His name is Stephen Bienko. So, Stephen, great having you all, man. This was a super interesting conversation, just talking about college sports and really how you're helping athletes build their brands for current opportunities, obviously with NIL, but as he says, the vast majority of college athletes will not make life-changing money in college right now. But he talks about why it's important for them to build their brands for life after sports, which obviously is a huge component of what we talk about in this podcast. So just appreciate a lot of the overlap in what he's doing and what I'm doing with this podcast. So he shared a little bit of his perspective on how athletes can transition beyond sports, building their personal brand and navigating the current NIL space. So, Stephen, thanks again, man, for coming on. This was great. Very cool seeing what you're doing just with brand building and how it can help student athletes. I mean, if there's student athletes tuning in, maybe this will help you just thinking about your brand and how that can either help you land big NIL deals, transition to life after sports, or just build a presence online in general. So thanks again for tuning in. Please enjoy this conversation with Stephen Bienko. All right, man, we're live. I'm here with Stephen Bienko, who's doing some awesome stuff with college athletes and just in the ever-changing NIL space and just collegiate athletic space. So, Stephen, I'm excited to talk to you, just share your story and hear what you're up to these days, man.
I appreciate being on, Joe. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were just saying you're a jack of all trades. You've done it all. You've dipped your toe, not dipped your toe. You've really built out a few businesses yourself, and now it seems like you're at the forefront of what I just said, like NIL and kind of the next wave of what college sports is going to look like. So the origin story of all that starts at Air Force and Villanova, right? That kind of got you started on this whole path. So I'd love for you just to touch on your time at Air Force and Nova and yeah, really how you got started.
Sure thing. Well, I love how you start off with the jack of all trades. I always say jack of all, master of none. Personality is something you're born with, right? And a character is something you can change. And I think personality wise, I just think that's how God made me. And I started off that way as a decathlete while I was in high school. And I got very attached to, that's what brought me into the track and field world. Although football was always such a strong love of mine, track and field just became this major interest point. And being a decathlete, and decathlete is a jack of many, master of none, but that's what brings you the success of being a very strong decathlete, is that you have to be able to learn a multitude of activities that all add up to greatness. And to be a good decathlete, you have to be able to maybe have a rough event, but then come back in your other 9 and succeed and just do well in those other 9, because your score will benefit at the end of that 1,500 meters. But I started recognizing so much of it, like you said. I went to the Air Force Academy and had a great opportunity to be there. And that was that eye-opening moment of life experiences and leaving home and being a part of the U.S. military and playing football for Coach Fisher DeBerry back then, and a tremendous experience. And like I've done many times, then things change. And back before the transfer portal, I transferred. And back then it was looked down upon. Right. I'll never forget that meeting that I had, the exit meeting. Now, it was very difficult back in the day where you had to have those exit meetings. People forget that as a young 19-year-old, you had to walk into a 56-year-old coach's office and say, sir, I would like to leave. And they then had the opportunity to give you their peace of mind about that. That was, good, bad, or indifferent. But I got the peace of mind at that phase, and I'll never forget it. And I transferred to Villanova, and it was a tremendous experience there, and got to play football there under Coach Andy Talley, who's an absolute legend in the college football space, and did so many great things at that university. And then also got to be a part of the legendary Villanova track and field team that has just historic people that are part of that team and continue to be part of that track and field program.
That's awesome. Yeah, Coach Andy Talley. So I'm about 25 minutes from Villanova here, down the road in media, and yeah, Andy Talley had an awesome built up a great program. I'm an Eagles fan, so yeah, Brian, were you? What
Finner,
years
yeah,
were you there?
no, yeah, he was there. Brian Finner was there. Super
Yeah.
guy, super guy.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah,
And his brother. They're both amazing. His twin brother. They're both amazing guys.
awesome, man. Well, very cool. So I'm sure that, yeah, just being involved in decathlons and playing football as well, that is it's interesting. It's an interesting background, right? So you started out after school. I'd love just to hear about this a little bit, as a state trooper.
Yeah, believe that, right? Yeah, state of New Jersey, state trooper, whipping up and down the Parkway to Turnpike, 280, 287, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'll be honest, and this kind of crosses over. We can probably touch upon this as to sort of a now thing. But I had no idea who I was and what I wanted to do. But I, like any young person, I was driving down the Garden State Parkway on the way to the beach with some friends, and 3 state troopers flew past us, like about 100 miles an hour, and just ripped past us. And I just said, "Well, that's interesting." And I had a couple state trooper parent friends that were their parents were state troopers, and so I knew about it. And at that time in New Jersey, man, they were it. They were the Navy SEALs of New Jersey at that time, right? It was, wow. If you were a state trooper, you were that guy and that gal for sure. So I got really lucky. Again, I applied while I was at Villanova, and I was in the middle of my track and field season, and I said, let's go for it. And I did it, and I magically got accepted. And at the time, they normally my class, I think, was an average probably 28 years old. So I was a young buck in that class. Some of my classmates had kids. Some of them had some amazing experience. They've been in the military, gone to college. Some of them had been prior police officers. A couple were attorneys. I think 4 of them were former NFL football players. So these guys had, they had careers beforehand. And I got so lucky to get in at a young age. But it was super life experience, learning about how people operate, how families operate, how life really is in the real world. Just a dose of reality, put it that way.
Yeah. So a lot of kids, if they don't know what they want to do, they'll go get a sales job or something. That's kind of that's
Call
my
me
background a
crazy.
little bit. Yeah. So, but you were state trooper for a few years.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. And then, so it's just interesting because there's a lot of transitions, right? Like you've gone from one thing to another. So I'm really just curious on how you were thinking about all these things. But like, what was the decision? All right, maybe I might have made a wrong decision, and then you kind of got into the business world after that. And then I know there's college hunks. It seemed like you did really well in the franchise world. So maybe just step by step, like, how did you navigate figuring out, all right, it's time to maybe do something else here?
Even at that phase, I still didn't know who I was, but I believed in myself. And that was a trait that I had and had been given from my mother and preached, because I wasn't that kind of kid growing up. I was a very insecure kid growing up. I stuttered until I was 13. I barely could get words out of my mouth. I had to go to special testing just to get into the high school that I went to. I was blessed to go to a very, very great high school in New Jersey, and Del Barton School. And in order to get in there, I had to go through multiple layers of other exams because I had a deep stuttering issue that I had for many years. A lot of it was just built on a lot of insecurity. And so my mother just instilled in me from a very young age of betting on yourself and believing in yourself. And so despite having an identity challenge, I still believed in myself. And so while I was a state trooper, I loved training athletes. It was just something I adored to do. And coming off, as I mentioned, I was young at the time, and I just finished my college football career, finished my track and field career. I was still training. I was still active. I was still believing I'm this athlete, and which is part of the identity crisis we'll get into. But I had that belief. So I would go to the track on my days off in the state police, and I would see young kids out there running around and with their mom or dad, and they had no idea what they were doing. And so I just would walk up to them and say, "Hey, if you adjust your arm here, or you bring your knee up here, or you adjust your foot position here, you can run faster." And I just started doing that out of the kindness of my heart as I was out there working out. And after a while, like anything else, you keep doing something that your heart is invested in, and people start showing up, and a couple kids would just show up, and I would start working with them. And by the time you turn around, I was on this local track, and I had about 12 kids out there working out on the track. And the AD comes up to me and says, "I'm sorry, you can't be doing this here. This is an insurance problem." I said, "What's that?" I'm 21 years old. What do you mean there's a problem? And then he gave me the whole spiel that, I can't just be training people. I said, "But I'm not charging them." And he said, "But you still can't be training groups of people out here." I said, "Okay." So at that time, I said, "Then I'm going to open a space." And so I opened a 5,000 square foot athletic training center. It had never been done before for youth athletes. And so I modeled it after the Air Force Academy's training center, because I thought it was, at that time, and we're talking a long time ago, 1998 or 1997, it was one of the most fabulous athletic training centers out there. And plus the U.S. Olympic Training Center was right down the street. So they were light years ahead of in college sports when it came to training centers. So I modeled it. I just shrinked it down to this 5,000 square foot building and started my first business, and had no idea what I was doing. But I was a state trooper and a business owner at the same time. I basically did not sleep, but I had no family, I had no kids, no girlfriend, no nothing. And I was still living at home. So why not go for it? And so I was a state trooper during the day or late at night. And then I trained athletes on my off time. And it just kept floating that way for about 2 years. And finally I got a break. Like anything in life, you get a break. And that break was, I got into the professional tennis world, and I was training a New Jersey professional tennis player who was born and raised in New Jersey. And he was now living in LA. And so that brought me into that world. And then, like anything else, you seize that moment. And that was an opportunity to take what I was doing with the young athletes and transfer that up to the professional tennis world. And that opened the doors to a lot of new things and a lot of new life events that really changed the trajectory of how I saw things.
All right. That's awesome. So it was kind of just an opportunity that you saw, and it was something that you enjoyed, and then you were able to help people. Like, you're able to help these kids train and ultimately build a business out of it, which is great. So then 42, not to skip too far ahead here on the timeline, but so 42G, because I was listening that you were on a few podcasts a few years ago, right? Talking about 42G, and you're wearing a t-shirt that says "Your brand, your story." If I did my research correct here, that's kind of what you were doing, right? You were helping build online presences, social media. So what were some of the origins of 42G in that business?
Yeah. So I in my previous business, like you mentioned, College Hunks Hauling Junk, when I got into the franchise world, I really started understanding the intertwinings of branding and what branding really meant. And, College Hunks was founded on the premise of that brand alliance of college, hunks, whatever that means to you, right? And the association, I really started understanding how branding worked and how branding operated. And that gave me my crash course, and then how brand attaches to your identity, right? And what that means. And so, fast forward outside of that realm, got into 42G because I saw the hole in the social media world when it came to small businesses. And because of my age, a lot of times in business, it's a lot of, you hear that luck is, success is luck meets opportunity. Luck is just hard work, at the right moment, the right time. But there's also a category of being in the right place at the right time, being the right age as well. And I was that age where I was sort of half in, half out of the social media realm, but I was still in the business world. And so at the time, most of the people that had some knowledge of social media were not veterans in the business world. And so I kind of parlayed a basic understanding of social media at that time, and then saw the opportunity that small businesses were really in need of people helping and manage their social media and learning how to communicate to the social world about their small business and about themselves personally. Saw that as a great opportunity. So that was 42G, and that was, a social performance agency, and built that up for a couple of years, and was really successful. And we enjoyed it and got a chance to bring on a lot of interns in the college world. And that opened the doors to beginning of, we were in the midst and doing well in 42G. And that's when all the chatter started happening in the college sports world. And then my eyes just lit up. And again, we had about 50 to 60 interns from college. And a lot of them were athletes at the time. And we were hearing the rumblings from them. And so we started some think tanks internally and getting some communication from those current college athletes who were also interested in social media. So who they kind of got it, right? And what are you guys thinking about this? NIL, what is this? What's happening with this? And we started kind of diving into that world, and then began to make the transfer out of social and into the college sports world.
So did you wind down 42G? Like what is that? Because is that a rebrand of 42G essentially?
Yeah,
Like
it's kind of a revamp, but
I mean,
the business is separate. The business is separate. We winded 42G down. We continued all of our contracts until the contracts ended, like anything else, and we completed all of our contracts. And then we just we unwound that. We shut that down for a little while, and then as that was going, we built up 42U.
All right, so 42U. This I really want to talk about this and just
Yes.
the brand and the NIL space, because I was a college athlete myself. Just trying to think. I'm sure they had some brand work, maybe brand workshops. But remember the SAC, the student athlete. What was it?
Student Athlete Advisory Council.
Thank you. So the SAC, and there would be these events that they would have. It'd be a Monday night after like all day of practice, and we're all in the back, like we really don't want to be here. But they would bring in these speakers, and I don't know that we ever really did a ton with the branding. NIL wasn't a thing, right? So when I was at Seton Hall, the basketball team won a Big East championship. I'm sure a lot of those guys would have really been able to capitalize on name, image, and likeness. So I would love just to hear like 42U. I know you help with branding, and there's a branding kit as well. So when you go into one of these universities, like what are some of those initial conversations you're having, and just helping the education aspect? Love just to hear you, elaborate on what you guys are doing.
That's kind of the premise of it. Obviously, the basis of 42U comes from the observation of how Jackie Robinson and the great number of 42 was more than just the athlete. And that really sets the premise of the tone of what 42U represents. And Jackie Robinson was just that. He knew that being a great baseball player was much lower on the totem pole to what he was able to do in life. And that was his platform. That was his stepping stone to all the other things that he can do in life. And that kind of sets the tone for it. And that's where, I mentioned that we'll get to it. And that was, my aha moment didn't come until in my mid-30s, where I really had an identity problem. And I identified as an athlete until I was like 35, 36 years old. That was, although there was some great success in life in a couple different areas, but there was a lot of challenges because I was only identifying myself as an athlete. And that's how I saw myself. And that's how I perceived everybody else saw me. Even at that age, 35, 36, athletics has been gone for 10, 12 years. And I still had that identity challenge. And so I thought to myself, if I had that identity challenge, there are thousands of current student athletes out there, especially in this day and age where now social is so massive. And we are so aware of the of college athletes, and college athletes are so aware of themselves and how people see them and how they comment on them, and all this content is wonderful and it's great, but at the end of the day, I just observed that as there's a challenge there, and I saw that as an identity challenge as well. And so that was the foundation of 42U, and we move into the universities to support them in with that premise of branding, and how branding is just an extension of your character, right? Branding is an extension of your character, and all that aligns not just in NIL, but it also aligns in your next steps of life, but it also aligns currently with your performance on the field and in the classroom. You're going to perform at your very best when you feel secure about yourself. And there are ways that we figured with our psychological assessment, we knew that there are ways to help athletes, student athletes, identify who they are, so that right now they can perform for themselves in their universities and their communities, in the classroom and on the field. That level of performance, yes, boosts their confidence currently, but it also helps them create brands that can be identified in the NIL space, in the life after sports space. Now, life after sports space is far more important than the current NIL space. I mean, shoot, there's 190,000 student athletes, and only 157,000 of them will never even come close to any revenue share, any NIL deals, and a lot of them don't even care about that, right? And so the big conversation is constantly happening about this 1% of student athletes. Is such a small percentage of student athletes who are participating on massive levels of, 5-figure, 6-figure NIL deals. And even when we talk about revenue share, it's still, when you think about the entire population of student athletes and what the real responsibility of the universities are when it comes to those student athletes, and that's to develop 18 to 23-year-olds and prepare them for life after they graduate. And so we want to build something that serves that entire community, that can spark the real branding of NIL, right? And that's where I really, found the love for NIL. It's like, yes, because this became passionate to me, because I was one of those guys in college that under a scholarship, I just could not understand how the NCAA could block me from getting a job at a sandwich spot down the street from Villanova University, because I needed money in my pocket to just buy things that any other 19, 20-year-old want to buy without going and begging mom and dad, right? Wanting to stand on your own 2 feet. And it was blocked. And I couldn't do that without going through all these hurdles. And to me, it was just like this mind blow. Like, what are you talking about? That I want to go work like my roommate's going to work. And I found that to be very disturbing. And fast forward many years, there was a young athlete, I believe he was from Texas A&M, and he was a cross-country runner. And he invented a water bottle. And he was an entrepreneur. He invented the water bottle. He processed the water bottle. He built it. He was selling it. And the NCAA gave him a choice. You either choose to go be the entrepreneur, or you choose to go be a cross-country runner, but you can't do both. Excuse me? That was just like mind blowing, right? And so we knew then that, hey, I want to help support that. So when that was happening, we really understood that branding was such a valuable aspect of when it comes to that small percentage who's looking for NIL and those opportunities, really building and understanding what the foundation is of how to build a brand that is sustainable over a period of time. And those steps begin with understanding what your brand actually is, who you are. Right? And then that also translates over to, hey, what type of career am I actually interested in? Or am I just following the path of everybody else? Am I just going to, Wall Street because all my friends from high school or a couple of my buddies, they're all going to Wall Street? Is that really me? Or will I be massively successful in another field and feel really good about myself in another field? And that happens when you have a clear understanding. That's part of your brand too.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's so that's so important, right? Because to what your point and what you just said, NIL, when I think of NIL, my mind immediately goes to that 1% that you just talked about. I think of Archie Manning, who's the quarterback that went Carson Beck that went down to
Yes.
Miami. Like I think of those huge NIL deals. The reality of it is what you just said, that 90%, 95% are just in that very small part that aren't making $50,000 or $100,000 while you're in college. So you do need to figure out while you're playing, you need to figure out how can I use this experience to maximize what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or maybe not maximize it, like be on that right path, like find the right career, basically. So, is it's workshops that you walk them through, like how do you see that? Like you get onto a campus. I know on your website, what was it? Is it Rutgers lacrosse maybe, or because you work with the Big Ten a lot?
Yeah, so we're partners with the Big Ten, and
Yep.
Overall as a conference, and then we have very good partnership with Rutgers University right now, where we go in and we work with the individual teams. So we start with the individual teams, and we begin building out these our branding kits for the individual athletes, which they go through a psychological assessment, personal assessment, and we build branding kits for them. Right? These aren't branding kits just based upon what someone's opinion is, right? We build them based upon factual psychological data as well, and the branding of the athlete from different other sources. And we begin building these branding kits, and then we offer the branding kits to the student athletes, and then we mentor the student athletes through the branding kits. So we become not just one-offs with the university. And I think that's what's been very positive, and why the universities are so interested, is that we're not just one-offs. We're not just a website, which can be very valuable, right? We're an actual partner of the university, an extension of their staff in supporting the student athletes. And when a student athlete wants to build an NIL brand, right, I often stop and tell them, well, based on what? What are you building? Why would a company actually be interested in you? You got to walk this through, right? And this is very important when you think about, because what you see, like you mentioned, Joe, you see the Arch Mannings, you see the Livy Dunns, you see the Shedeur Sanders, right? You see the Carson Becks of the world, right? And there's a whole host of others. I'm just naming the biggest of the biggest. You see them and you hear about them as a young athlete through your social media parameters, right? And you're looking up and saying, well, yeah, I'll go do that too. Well, why would the company be interested in you? Those individuals have a brand, whether they built it personally or not. Some of the brand has been built for them. Like you look at a Shedeur and you look at an Arch Manning. Those brands have been sort of built over the course of time because of family legacy. Right? And so when you're looking at the true NIL deals, that's valuable to the brands that they are associating with, because they have a long-standing brand based upon their families. Now, you have the opportunity to build your own brand, but we have to build it just like you built your athletic career. I like to ask some of the athletes sometimes when talking to them, how many of you were great when you were 13? And a lot of it, surprisingly, most of them don't raise their hand. Some of them do. Maybe they were awesome, amazing athletes at 13, but most of them don't raise their hand. But look where you are now. You're a Big Ten student athlete. You were the best of your sport. You were with a small crop of individuals in whatever sport you play. So, but that took you time to get there, because you just raised your hand and said you weren't that great at 13. So over the last 6, 7, 8 years, you built yourself. Well, you have to build your brand the same way if you're going to be valuable to a third party to join in a relationship or a partnership with you. So let's do that. Let's first identify who you are, though, first. Not who you think you are, who other people say you are, or maybe who your parents have told you who you are. Let's really identify who you are as a brand. And now let's start living that. Where another shirt says, live your brand, right? And let's start living your brand, living who you are, because that's going to help you align with the right partnerships. Now, when you align with the right partnerships, then over the course of time, those rewards will come. So if we start freshman year, establishing, building the foundation, working up, building the brand, by the time you are a junior, let's have a little patience here, everybody. Everything is not quick and fast, right? There's a little bit of value in building over time. And even that short period of time, let's build from freshman year to junior year. And then by the time you're a junior, maybe you're getting a little more playing time too. And now you have an established brand. Now you can start pitching yourself and start receiving some income. But now let's flip that script, like you said, Joe. That $10,000 deal you do your junior year, that may seem great as a junior in college. Wonderful, amazing. I wish I had $10,000 just dropped in my lap when I was in college. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not taking you very far. So it's great you got some cash, but let's build the relationship with the brand that you're now partnering with. Because that brand, if that's a regional company and you're going to University of Illinois and that company's based out of the Champlain area, well, then maybe that's your first internship as well in your field of study. And then you do a great job in that internship and that turns into your first entry-level job after you graduate. Right? So those are the steps and paths we begin to work with them once we establish what that brand is.
Sure. You talk about those internships. Actually, I want to ask you about this. How is this received by obviously it's got to be received well by the athletic departments, like a Big Ten, because they're partnering with you. So
I think they like it.
it's gotta be positive. Maybe like some of those coaches, right? Because their job should be holistically to develop the person, right? And most of the time I think it is, but they get paid a lot of money to win games. Is there a pull, what am I looking for? Like a give and take almost to that, where coaches are like, all right, it's great that you're building your brand, but we also need to spend, I said 90% before, but spend most of that time on the field playing the games. Like, does that make sense? How is that received? Maybe, but yeah.
Totally makes sense. And I'm glad you bring up coaches. Obviously, there are a variety of coaches, personalities, characteristics in the coaching paradigm, right? And what we do for coaches is that we want to support on multiple levels. Some coaches are very interested in supporting the athletes off the field branding, right? The holistic side of it. Some are very interested in that and they're all in. And we provide that. At the same time, our branding kit is multiple folded. We can help a coach because of the psychological assessment we're doing. We also have the information to assist a coach for the athlete on the field now. We can support why is the athlete challenged in high profile situations, championship game, a night game, a day game, a rainy game, a challenging game, a high level game versus a ranked opponent versus a non-ranked opponent. How do we help that athlete perform now? That is also part of the service we offer to the coaches. So the coaches that are interested in that, now the athlete is supported in what they need, which is very interesting. Some of the athletes they get their branding kit for the first time, they start tearing up. Because for some, it's the first time that they're actually like, yes, this is me. This is, yes, holy cow. That's what I've been trying to tell people all these years. Like, this is what I'm really feeling. Like, you just get that quick, overwhelming emotion. Like, wow, that's me. And so that athlete gets service. That coach also gets service because now they can identify some traits. Why is my lacrosse player having a challenge going to the right and really going against a tough competitor going to the right? Well, part of the evaluation process in our psychology team, we can assist with that. Above my pay grade, but Dr. Nick and our team well within their pay grade to support that student athlete and that coach in that realm. Now, the real crust of it is that we offer team branding, because the entire world of college athletics has changed. I believe for the good. And I say that for the good is because there's massive amounts of benefits for student athletes now coming down the pipeline. It may not be readily seen. There's still a lot of smoke involved right now, but there's a lot of opportunity for student athletes coming down the pipeline. There's a lot of opportunity for new people to enter the college sports world. Great opportunity to enter the college sports world, whether you're a third party or you would like to be part of the college administration, because before it was all based on admin. And that's why it's so difficult to get into the college world, because you had to start from the very, which is wonderful, but you had to start from the very bottom and you just had a grad assistant work your way through, whatever it was. And then maybe eventually one day you'll get to that middle section in the athletic department. It's all admin based. Well, now there's doors open for people from the outside. You're even seeing it through the AD ranks. you're seeing former CEOs, you're seeing people who ran major corporations, major organizations now becoming the ADs of universities. This is fantastically fabulous. Right? It's a new avenue for people because sometimes, Joe, I didn't know when I was 21, 22 years old that I would like to be part of an athletic department and roll through that process over the next 25 years. I had no thought of that at the time. But I love that world of athletics now. I would love to be part of an athletic program at some point in time. But back then, that would be almost literally impossible to get involved with. Today, those doors are opening up. Open doors for new companies to be involved, to impact their businesses within the college sports rank. Because there's plenty of opportunities where before it may have been closed off, where you had to just have a certain amount of money to be a part of that university, to be headline in the stadium, but to be a major corporate sponsor. That's only for a few select organizations and companies. Now that door is wide open. Now universities, they have to open the door because they need new forms of revenue coming through. And when new forms of revenue are needed, this is when great new opportunities open up for a lot of people.
That's interesting. Yeah, it really is. And what about in terms of collectives? Because you wrote an article, I think it was in 2024, kind of as an adversary to collectives. Is that accurate?
Yes, I did. And
Has
at
your
the
opinion
time,
changed on that at all, or
my opinion hasn't changed in the source of how collectives were before. I never believed in just paying athletes to pay athletes, just to do random work and to just be paid because they want to keep you there on campus. That is the disease that was plaguing college sports. Right now, with adding revenue share and NIL opportunities for student athletes, and that is not poison. That is actually fantastic opportunities for a variety of people. Right? Everybody can grow in that field. To just pay somebody just because and almost like almost like a money laundering firm to just money moving in and paying athletes. I did not believe in that. Are there good people that are involved in collectives? 100% amazing people that were involved in collectives. And so many of them were just trying to do the very best they can to help support the universities they love. I can't hold that against them one bit at all. But I never thought collectives were going anywhere. When it came down to, at the end of the day, this is just not going to fly. And what you're seeing is that some universities are adapting, bringing the collectives inside, right, into the university. Great. Now you're of the rules and regulations of the university, and you're held to the standards. We all have to be held to standards in life, all of us, right? Everybody's my wife holds me to my standards, right? And that's, at the end of the day, I could be the boss of a lot of things, but at the end of the day, that's where my standards are being held. And so we all have to be held to some kind of standards. And so I believe that this new age, now we have the opportunity for collectives to make a shift. And some universities are doing a really good job at making the shift. It's a new way. Some are transferring them into marketing agencies where great collectives are being in, but now let's actually turn them into branding marketing agencies that are not just handing money out, but actually processing opportunities for the university and the student athletes.
okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, because there's a kid from my area who you probably even know him, but Dan Furman down at Louisville.
Sure.
He like helped launch their NIL collective, and I'm still
he's different,
being
man.
on the outside. Yeah, being on the outside looking in, I'm still trying to understand a lot of it, but it seems like the way that they branded a lot of that, and like they have these media networks on campus, and they're kind of, you know what I mean? So
he's killed it. He's killed it. He's done a fantastic job with that. But that's, again, that is, he's a 1%er when it comes to that, because he's looked at that as a business mind and a growth oriented mind, media, branding, engagement, building the student athlete. He's done a fantastic job with that. And Louisville's doing such a great job in this new space overall. I mean, the partnerships that they're gaining, what they're doing internally, how they're building up the student athletes individually. There's something I really believe in it. And it's a micro, and it's a mid, and it's a macro branding. You've got to start with that micro athlete branding. Every single athlete as part of a university, they all have a brand, and all of it. Some can be revenue based, some can be non-revenue based, but they are all a piece of that university. Brand them all. And when you think about branding them all, I don't mean brand them so they can be picked up by the local company or the regional national company. No, brand them so they identify with themselves, and then they can identify with the mid brand. The mid brand is the team. And that's one of the things that we do with our branding kits is if we bring our branding kits all together and we identify a team brand. Now this becomes valuable because in this new age, where's all this money coming from? All the universities, I don't care if it's Ohio State, Michigan, or Lafayette College. Where's the money coming from to continue the growth, paying student athletes, continue in foundational buildings of assets, right? And paying coaches, paying different types of administrators, right? So this mid brand is the team brand. So now you can really market a team to a regional, local, or national organization and company because the brand is actually identified. That CMO has to understand what that identifiable brand of the team is so they can interlock it with their company's brand and the customers or clients they're serving and how that all interacts, right? So that has to be clearly done. And then at the end of the day, then there's the macro brand, and the macro brand is the athletic department in the university, right? But all starting with that individual's brand.
It starts, okay. Yep. It starts with the individual athletes. Yeah. It is just such an interesting thing because, yeah, you're going to see, and you're talking about where's that money coming from. We'll do another podcast on that. Like,
let's talk about that. Where's that money coming from?
Where's the money going to come from? Coming from like BlackRock and those guys at some point going into college athletics. But Steve and I, we will do, like, we're going to stay in touch, and I would love to do another one of these at some point. But as we start to wind down, I just want to ask you too, from a business standpoint, maybe like what's on the horizon for 42U, and like what have you learned so far? I mean, it's a evolving space, but what are some of the things you've learned to this point, just getting 42U started, and then maybe what's next?
Well, I tell you what, the one thing I've learned in this space is how amazing some young student athletes are. I mean, of all the challenges that we have going on in society today and all the noise that's thrown at us from multiple directions, right? There are some incredible young women and men. And to learn their stories, to learn all about them. And that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for, that we have access to know so much about so many great young people coming up the pipeline. That is one thing for sure, that there are some exceptional people. And like we mentioned, there's an opportunity to, when there's chaos, there's opportunity, right? And there's so much opportunity for them and for them to build our country, society, that if we allow those doors to be opened even greater, we will see all of our lives improve. And I really believe in that. And that's one thing that we've learned with 42U, is that there are some amazing young women and men. Internally, we've learned that there is a lot of confusion in college sports right now. And I think that there's opportunity right now to strike and create new growth opportunities that not only grow the student athlete, but grow the universities and grow the opportunity to see great athletics happen. There's so many great new media realms happening right now, and it's only going to be more enjoyable. If you're a sports lover, there's only more opportunity to be a part and to watch the sports that you love.
I agree, man. Yeah, I can't wait for college football this year, because I feel like this year is like the first year that pretty much everybody knows kind of what's going on at this point in terms of NIL, and whether they know the inner workings of it or not. You know that these kids, some are getting paid a lot of money, but it does go down to the branding. Yeah, because if you're the Penn State quarterback, Drew Aller, if you're the Penn State quarterback, and just the opportunities for maybe not even in Happy Valley, but just like having somebody be like that, be the face of your brand it's just super cool. I think I agree with you that it's an exciting time.
It's
And
great for them. It's great for them. Like you brought up a great point, Joe, about how, you've created this brand opportunity. And that's how people learn about a game today. My son, who's a young budding quarterback and a lover of football and watches it constantly, does not watch it on the TV. And this is that eye-opening moment, right? In the world of media when it comes to consumption. You have someone that is a diehard, and back in the day would be that kid when he wasn't running around, is glued to the screen watching every game pass through. He doesn't sit and watch the games. He's watching the media of the players that he likes, and that's how he's being fed. Think about that. They're the brands. When you talk about that micro brand, that athlete is the brand because the younger generation is following the individual. And the great organizations like Greenfly and Playfly, they're doing a great job of pulling that information and shooting that content out. That's how you're engaging and watching the game, right? Because you're interested in the individual, just like we started. You're interested in Jackie Robinson. Well, that's how you're learning about culture, faith, what's going on in the country, because you're paying attention and listening to that individual. That becomes fascinating. And so you're watching and learning the game because you're getting the real-time clips uploaded because the athlete that's involved with the game, it's passing through their media. That to me is fascinating.
It sure is. It sure is, Steven. So, all right, man. Well, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. And I love just to hear about what you're doing with getting athletes, at least like thinking about their brand and how they can launch a really successful career in life, man. Because college sports, it lasts for 4 years and it goes like that. And yeah, so it's really about what you can do for the next 40, 50 years. And it all starts, yeah, being a college athlete it's great, man. It's so cool because you have opportunities that other kids just don't have. So yeah, to allow that to spark the rest of your career is very cool. So, all right, man. If you could just give a quick shout out to where folks can find you if they're interested, that'd be
Sure
great.
thing. You can find us at 42U, the 42U on Instagram. You can find me at general all the social media sites under Stephen Bienko.
Love it. All right, Steven. Thanks again for the time, man, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks, Joe. It's been great. Thanks.
All right.